Welcome, and thanks for stopping by. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to our podcast on one of your favorite platforms, I'm glad you're here. At this time, I would like to thank our partners and sponsors for their dedication to helping the show to grow. We cannot do what we do without their help. Hey everybody, you reached the Millennium Beat with your host Kevin James. Well, Merry Christmas. Today happens to be Christmas Eve, and I have a special old friend on the computer with me, Mr. Pastor Paul Turner. Paul, welcome.
Hey, Merry Christmas, Kevin. I thought you were going to say my old friend, old Saint Nick.
No, I didn't know Nick.
I'm just old Saint Paul, I guess.
You're Saint Paul, yes. Not the original Saint Paul, but you are Saint Paul.
Yes, correct.
Yes, so I appreciate you coming out and, going through that snow in Alabama, all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Your home studio. Uphill, both ways.
Both ways.
Yes, so this is a topic show, and we're going to be talking about Christmas and Christmas Eve and Christmas traditions and stuff like that. So we really don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to go toward Christmas. We know that. So sit back and enjoy our show. So Paul, let's get into it. Let's start off. What are some of your early memories of Christmas?
My earliest memories of Christmas, I can, for me, it's all revolves around the toys, right? So for me, I remember getting a red Huffy bike.
Okay.
That I used to ride. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I remember getting this Huffy bike, and I would try to ride it. And I can remember that the way I used to stop is I'd ride it to the end of the block, and I'd run myself into the mailbox.
Oh wow!
So I would stop so that's how because I didn't know how to brake. I was like, well, I got to stop somehow, so I guess I'll just run myself into the mailbox, and that'll be fine. The other thing I remember about toys too is I remember getting the Planet of the Apes action figure set.
Okay.
And I get the
is this the movies one, or is this
the movie?
The TV.
Yeah,
show?
This is the original.
Oh, the
back,
original.
Back when there was back with the originals in the 70s, and I remember getting I think it was like the Treehouse. I want to say it was the Planet of the Apes Treehouse was fun. Wow. And I'd have like Cornelius, and I'd have all the various Taylor and other action figures, and of course I've probably isolated most of the audience here who is not familiar with Planet of the Apes, but those were toys that I remember getting. There was also I remember getting something called Micronauts, and these Micronauts were these like little clear, posable, tiny figures, and they had all these cool vehicles. So super sci-fi, which probably, I mean, based on 2 out of the 3 toys I just mentioned, probably led to my love of science fiction and fantasy movies. Okay. So just in that genre there. So that's my earliest, and also going to. I grew up Catholic, so going to Christmas Mass was also was a big deal as well. So.
Okay.
So yeah, that was those to me. Those the earliest memories are about toys, about going to Christmas Mass, and then going to family. We had, at least in New York, we had a good sized family, so we would always go somewhere for Christmas Eve, whether it be some friends of my mom and dad's, or it was a family that our family that we would go visit, or cousins or whatever. So yeah, those are my earliest memories. What are your earliest memories?
Well, thank you for asking me. My earliest memories is obviously like yours, toys. I mean, I think that's general in a lot of people, that they have toys. One of the things I remember, believing in Santa Claus at that time, Santa Claus brought me a bicycle, and he dropped it down the stairs, So it had a little scrape in it, and I remember that. And I remember getting one of those wagons that, little red, not a red wagon that you pull. Like when you get in there, you have your feet going, and it's like a little race car, but it just had a frame. It didn't have a whole complete body. So I remember that. I can always remember, when we were younger, we could go to bed with one toy. It's like, okay, you can take one toy to bed. The interesting thing with our family is we grew up Catholic also, and I was an altar boy until I was about, I don't know how old you are when you stop being altar boy. I'm thinking 15 or 16 years old. I don't know, somewhere like that. I remember we used to also go to midnight mass and stuff. When we started out younger, midnight was like forever. I remember one of the things, sleeping in the closet, because I wanted Christmas Eve to come really quick. So the only way I could do it is go sleep in the closet. So I slept in the closet, and then
was that like a time machine? Like, was the closet a time machine that you would get in, and like it would like move you in time faster to Christmas Eve?
Except for me now, if I wouldn't do that, I would be in the closet for a minute and then wake up and say, "Okay, I'm ready to go."
Okay, I was thinking like it was Doctor Who's TARDIS or something like that, where you would get in there.
I wish it was. Yeah, I would get in there and make time go by faster because I would be sleeping. So it just wasted time away, So and obviously when we started, when we were younger, I grew up an only child of 5, so most of my older siblings are much older than I am. So I was the baby of the family, and it's just things that I remember is the Christmas Eves. We were sleeping, or I was sleeping, and then my parents, my father worked in a grocery store, kind of like a convenience store. My uncle owned a liquor store, which was a convenience store style store. So he would work that. So as soon as he was done, he would come home and he would wake the kids up to say, "Hey, Santa Claus came," and all that kind of stuff. But to us, we thought it was like really late in the late in the evening, like midnight or something. But I found out in reality it was only about 9 o'clock at night, 9:30. So, and that all changed the older we got, because then we started going to the midnight mass, and then we started opening up presents after midnight mass. And next thing you know, we were up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So that kind of really changed after a while. It kind of changed.
Yeah, but, I can remember that as well. And now that I have, I have 3 kids of my own. And so, there was new traditions that sort of like, I don't know if it was a cultural thing where like you were allowed, like you opened up, like, I don't remember this as a kid, but you would get Christmas pajamas on Christmas Eve, and you could open your Christmas pajamas. I'm like, okay, well, that's a thing. So we've tried to maintain that, or you could open up, one gift on Christmas Eve or something like that.
Now, were you a Christmas morning person? I mean, not like wake wise, but did you open up your presents Christmas morning?
Oh yeah, we're predominantly Christmas morning. Open up your presents there. Yeah.
See, we were Christmas Eve, midnight or so, like we was just saying earlier. We would open. Our family never opened presents in the morning. I mean, but I've seen people that do that they wake up in the morning and and Santa came or whatever, and then they open up their presents. And but we didn't do that.
There's no wrong way to do Christmas.
No,
as far as if you do it if you want to do it after midnight, that's fine. Everybody's got their everybody has their traditions as far as how they do those things, and so I say, hey, good on you if you're a Christmas Eve person or a Christmas Day person. You're not doing it wrong.
It's funny. I'm not good about this. Have interacted with people. We're not doing this live, but if you're watching us right now and you have a Christmas tradition, write it in the comments below and let us hear what you guys do for Christmas. And then I can pass it on to Paul, if it's really, really good and interesting and stuff like that. So, but going back to our family is we did the same thing a little bit like what you said you did is we would open up presents. And then after that, we would go to my aunt's house on my mother's side. And that was the French side. And we would do that. And we would all the French relatives would be there. And that would be like a Christmas Eve party with all the relatives. Yeah.
Was there lots of wine and croissants?
I don't really remember.
Croissants?
Croissants.
Croissants.
Yeah, I don't
You know,
really
I just got back from Europe. They pronounce it croissant.
Croissant?
Yeah. I didn't get back from Europe. That's just from a commercial. It just hit my head.
It just hit your head.
Yeah.
Hope it doesn't hit it too hard.
No.
But yeah, I remember that. I can remember going. I can see it in my mind right now. I just can't remember who was there. I know my aunt, my mother's sister, and stuff like that. It was her house, and then other relatives. And maybe there was even people that weren't even relatives. I don't know. I just remember going there, and I remember it was in Gardner, Massachusetts, and it was near the state pool, and that's all I remember. So that was how we.
Well, I was going to say we both grew up in the north, and so I would say that the weather plays a part, I think, in Christmas memories. I mean, of course, snow here. I mean, here in Alabama, we've had snow. I believe one or two Christmases,
right,
that I've been here for the past 20 years, maybe 3, where as in New York and Boston and those things. I mean, snow is pretty traditional. It's pretty. It's part of the Christmas experience where you would go out and go sledding, or you would go snowball fights with your friends or whatever was happening. And then of course on those mornings you'd have to. I remember we would have to you'd get your toys, and the first thing you'd want to do is go meet with your friends to kind of talk about what you got.
Mm-hmm. The interesting thing, as I said, we both grew up in the Northeast, is like when you get a bicycle for Christmas, you really want to go out and ride it, but you can't because the roads, or most of the time, the roads were covered with snow and ice, and it was cold outside. And people, we talk about our traditions because growing up in the North. I find it different. We'll talk about this more as we go on in our conversation. I find it more difficult here in Florida celebrating Christmas than anywhere else, because I grew up for 30 years in the North where we had the snow. Now I remember one year, I think it was even since I moved here and I was there for vacation, it rained, and they said, thank God it didn't snow, because there's, I think, equivalent for every inch of rain is 10 inches of snow. Now, I might be wrong on that quote, but I think that's what I remember learning, is that every inch is 10 inches of snow. And we had 2.5 inches of rain. So we would have been buried Christmas Day, not going anywhere because there was so much snow. So, but it rained. But again, there's been Christmases. One of the Christmases I was thinking about, I was at my ex-girlfriend's house. We were watching a Christmas movie, Home Alone. And after that, I was going home, and it wasn't really snowing hard, but it was snowing. It's just a little bit, that you expect it to be in the North. But being in New England, it could be colder in Texas and icier and snowier than New England. It just depends on the jet stream, if we're on what side of the jet stream we're on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you talk about, Home Alone. I took students, my students from our youth group. I took them to, we have down here what's called the Alabama Theater. And the Alabama Theater is a classic, old school, theater where you have the side, where you have the, your really plush kind of seats around. Then you have almost like an opera house where you have the side, like the little balconies that kind of are on either side of the stage. And it has a, what I want to say, a Wurlitzer organ.
Right.
Where it comes up out of the stage.
Oh, wow.
And they play like the person playing will come up and do the thing and start off with a few Christmas carols or something like that, and then we go into the movie. But I took my students there, and it's funny watching movies, old movies on the big screen. I thought, because you've seen it so many times, that I remember just sitting there with my wife going, where you're saying you're now discovering things. You're going, hey, like example, when Joe Pesci says, hey, we're going to come back here at 8:00, to rob the house. Well, I remember I then looked at it, and I'd have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure he said 8 o'clock. But then it was 9 o'clock on the clock. On the time on the clock was 9 o'clock. So I'm gonna go back and check that. But it's funny how you see something so many times, you go, oh, okay. You start finding not discrepancies, but you're going, oh, okay. You didn't, you watched the movie originally because it was, it was fun to watch, and now when you're older, you're going, oh, you're watching it from a different point of view. But yeah, the kids enjoyed it. They'd already seen Home Alone, I guess, and all that, but they had not. Some of them had not been to the Alabama theater, so it was quite the experience for them. And it's fun. I think it's fun to watch old movies that are brought back to movie screens. I think it just adds a little, it's nostalgic, but I think it just frames it in a different way as watching, because I'm sure, like me, you watched the original in the movie theater at some point when it came out. And so, so for seeing it, going back and seeing it in theaters is quite fun.
It's funny. We'll talk about now in a few seconds about movies. But there's one movie I've not seen the whole complete thing from the beginning to the end is The Christmas Story. I've not seen. I don't think I have. I don't. I remember parts of it. I remember the leg lamp.
Yeah.
I remember the licking the pole, getting his tongue stuck to it.
Right.
You'll shoot your eye out.
Right.
And then something about a ring or something like that. But that's it. I mean, I might have watched the whole thing, but I don't remember watching the whole thing.
Every year they have it on like 24 hours on some channel somewhere. You could actually watch it. If you just put the channel on, you're going to catch up, I think, at some point.
That's probably that's why I know bits and pieces of it. I just don't remember sitting down say, okay, I'm going to sit at the beginning of the movie and watch the whole thing. I don't remember that. I might have, but it's not like a yearly tradition. I try to watch some Christmas movies. I have a huge blockbuster library at my house, so I have all kinds of movies like Christmas with the Cranks and then God, there's all kinds of The Grinch and there's all kinds of. Do you have a favorite Christmas movie that you guys like to watch as a family? That's your top movie?
Yeah, as a family, I think we like Tim Allen's The Santa Claus, so we'll watch. And he has his new one out now, which I've not seen yet. I imagine it will make its way. I think it's like the Santa Clauses. I think it's called.
Right.
It's like number 5 or something like that. And so we'll probably watch that. But I'll tell you what I think is an underrated Christmas movie, and it's with Vince Vaughn, called Fred Claus.
Yes, I've seen that.
And to me, that's an underrated Christmas movie. That's to me, that's a lot of fun. It's funny. It's got a lot of heart to it, and there's just a lot of great little fun scenes in it that make it so different than somebody, because in the movie Vince Vaughn plays Fred Claus, which is Santa Claus's brother.
Right.
So it has all this angst about, that your brother is, Santa Claus, and, you got overlooked, and, your brother's more successful than you. And Vince Vaughn, of course, is this down and out kind of side hustle guy and trying to hustle people and all that. And so he winds up having to go back and, help his brother because he needs money. And then it turns into another thing. And so, I don't know. To me, that's an underrated individual viewing pleasure for me.
Yeah.
But as a family, we probably defer to the Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Now we'll have to put an end to this debate. Is Die Hard 1 a Christmas movie?
I think I have landed on the side. I agree with Bruce Willis himself has said it is not a Christmas movie.
Right.
He said it's not. And my hardcore view is that it is not a Christmas movie, but it feels like the more I watch it, the more it becomes a Christmas movie. I don't know if it's just societal pressure.
If you watch it around Christmas.
I don't know what it is that's changing my mind, even though in my head I go, that's certainly not a Christmas movie. But but you know what? I was thinking about this. Have you ever seen the movie Legion?
I might have. I'm not sure.
Because listen, if Die Hard's a Christmas movie, the movie Legion is all about this woman. It's a horror movie, and
Right.
this woman having a baby
Okay.
whose husband is not the father of the child, and an
Right.
angel is sent to protect the child.
Okay, I
And
think I've
there's,
seen it.
in other words, there's this apocalyptic feature of the movie that
Okay.
that says, here's this child about to be born,
Mhm.
and who's, the father is is the guy that's the husband is not the father of the child, but
Mhm.
he's so committed to her, he defends her, he protects her, and all this stuff. And I'm going, well, listen, if Die Hard's a Christmas movie, is this not a Christmas movie too? Is this
Yeah.
not a Christmas movie? Come on.
Now, another one that came into my head is what about Gremlins? Now, it probably wasn't around the whole Christmas. I have to go back and watch it again. But I mean, we obviously know that the girl's father died Christmas Eve. We know that. So,
Yeah.
but other than that, Gremlins, has Christmas in it. So, I mean, it's not particularly a totally Christmas movie, but it does have Christmas in it. So, and there's a lot of
Right.
TV shows that will have Christmas
Oh,
specials.
sure.
Like I watched Eureka just recently, and they had like 2 Christmas specials because it was like
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a Christmas movie if you have Christmas in it. Like, I mean, like if you have, like, if it's done at the holidays, I don't know if it's a Christmas movie or not. I don't know if you can count it as a Christmas movie if it doesn't,
Yeah.
have certain tropes, or if it doesn't have, I mean, look, they'll run it. Look, is in December, especially, I find that they run the Harry Potter series quite a bit, or they run Lord of the Rings. Like, are these now Christmas movies?
I
Are
guess
these
so.
now because they run them in December because they feel holiday-ish? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, during Christmas, like we're talking now, is traditions. If you might have a movie that is not totally Christmassy, that is your tradition of watching. In a Harry Potter series or other TV shows or even other movies that are not particularly Christmas, but you have set up as a family. That's the show or that's the movie that we're going to watch.
Well, yeah, those are your right. You can have Christmas traditions, but they're not Christmas movies. I mean, that's kind of what we're, defining is what makes a Christmas movie. Does it just take place during the holidays, or is it about, right? Does it have Santa in it? Does it, is it about the birth of Christ? Does it have any, is, like, I just watched the new Eddie Murphy show, Candy Cane Lane.
Okay.
And it's fine. It's not. It's very. I think it's overacted a little bit. On some parts.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a traditional Christmas movie? Kind of. Yeah. I mean, it has a mean elf that's trying to get Eddie Murphy to do things and do all this stuff. But it's so wild. I'm like, But here's what I noticed on the block. They're like, part of the theme of it is that they're having this decorate your house competition.
Right.
And there's one family on the block that has a big sign that says Jesus is the reason for the season, right? There's like every neighborhood, it seems, that has the one house that just has the big sign that has to remind the whole neighborhood. It's like, hey, this is about Jesus, okay?
Right.
And I can appreciate that. I say, look, that to me that makes that makes sense, right? That you have these different houses, and then you got the one house that has the big sign that says Jesus is the reason for the season, whereas everything else is more holiday-ish, where you have snowmen and you have Santa Clauses and reindeers and all those things. So take it for what it's worth, but they did an okay job of putting that in there at least.
Now, thinking on the movie themes and movie topic, is there any quotes that you can remember, most of it or all of it, from a Christmas movie?
Oh, I always remember, it's odd, there's the line from It's a Wonderful Life, that every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
Right? Yeah, so I think that's a good quote. Shoot your eye out is another good one.
You'll shoot your eye out. That's another one.
That's always a good one. That's always quotable. let's see. I think like just Home Alone, has some classic quotes from it. Just the scream, just like when
Right.
Kevin
I
is
was
just
just thinking the
screaming
same
with
thing.
his hands out. He's putting the cologne on his face, and he
Or that, or
screams.
I see the screaming of the mother yelling, "Kevin!"
Yeah. Those are to me, they're classic, quotes
Yeah.
from movies that find their way back.
Right.
That they wind up in commercials, or they wind up in, you know,
Yeah.
those type
Oh
of
yeah.
things.
They're heartwarm, heartfelt. And one of the things we talked about the movie earlier about It's a Wonderful Life, and I've seen it in colorized version, I've seen it in black and white, and originally when that movie came out, it was a flop. It didn't really do well, and then actually for a while there, you could own that movie, you could bought the rights to it because the rights ran out, and then
Yeah,
eventually I think Turner bought the rights to it, but it was a classic, about how important our lives are. Sometimes we don't think they are, but it is how we affect people, and especially during the Christmas time. It's
yeah. It gets into our psyche.
it does. So now let's move on. The next favorite subject during Christmas is eating. What are some of the foods that you really like to enjoy around Christmas?
It is tradition on Thanksgiving morning and Christmas morning. Sadly, I only get this twice a year. But my wife makes the best sausage balls. And sausage balls are simply sausage and flour and
Okay.
cheese.
Wow, they
And
sound good.
she makes them to perfection. They're about yay big,
Wow.
and
Big.
they're just fluffy. And it's probably good that I don't eat them
Get
but
them all
twice
the
a
time.
year, because if I had them every day, I'd weigh 600 pounds. Because I'll eat a dozen of them before anything happens. I just noticed
Right.
that
They're that
that I've
good.
already stuffed my face with a dozen of these beautifully uh, cooked, golden brown, slightly greasy. Uh, you know,
Make me hungry. I'm glad I had breakfast.
yeah,
I'm glad I had breakfast. That is cool. Now we know, like Thanksgiving, and we didn't really talk. We didn't have a Thanksgiving show, but a lot of people have turkeys for Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
yeah,
Christmas, some people have turkey, some people have ham,
yes,
or some people have. I mean, I even had Thanksgiving once. I had an Italian Thanksgiving. I had
yeah,
lasagna. I
yeah,
mean, it depends on your culture and what you grew up in. We grew up with turkeys.
yeah.
Uh, a Thanksgiving store I remember was over my aunt's house. They took the turkey out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator, but it never thawed out. It was like still frozen, and we didn't have turkey dinner that day. But Christmas, we mostly is. I think our family was more of a ham person or a ham family when it came to Christmas,
Yeah.
compared to turkeys but it was a combination. And we had always the other things, your desserts and all that fun, nice, filling, fattening things that you're not really supposed to eat, but you do eat during the holidays.
Yeah.
And it's just, in general, it's just, you eat, you eat and you eat and you eat and you eat. So that's why everybody goes on diet. Okay, I'll go on a diet after the first of the year, and that's a whole nother show. New Year's, what's going on with that. But Christmas wise, we talked about food. Talked about what about music? Is there any particular secular or Christian songs that you would like or you do like to listen to during Christmas?
Yeah, I think, and you know what? I would be remiss though if I did not say that. At least for us, for food wise, we
Okay.
mix it up every year. Like some years, like one year we had steaks for
Okay.
Christmas.
Wow. That's
One year, I
interesting.
think this year we're having some sort of like sirloin, sliced
Mm,
sirloin. So, but I think it's okay. Once again, it goes back to family traditions. For some
mhm.
people, it's traditional to have ham,
Right.
or those type of things. But for us, I think it's good tradition wise to mix things up, and to
Okay.
to where things don't become so traditional it makes you miserable. If it's making
Right.
you miserable, you should probably
Right.
change it up. You should
Change it
probably
up.
change it up. But back to
All
songs.
right.
So songs,
Uh,
we were talking about this last night.
Okay.
There are songs that I am putting out to my audiences on my podcast and YouTube channel and Facebook and other places where I'm talking about different versions of things. So, like example, my favorite version of Little Drummer Boy is by a band called Whiteheart. And Whiteheart to me it's hands down the best version of. It's so dramatic. Is the best version of that. There's everybody makes a big deal about Mariah Carey and all that.
Yeah.
I like big band Christmas. Like I like Russ Taff, who's an old CCM artist, Christian contemporary Christian music artist, has a great Christmas album. With all the favorites, but it's all done big band style. So, and I remember, I think it was my wife and I. We went a few years ago. We went and saw Brian. Oh shoot! Anyway, he's the lead. He's the band. He used to be the lead for the Stray Cats back in the '80s, and he has a Christmas big band thing that he does. And so I find that the things that the music that he puts out, for that, I don't know. I tend to favor those type of things. Like I like different. I like. I mean, I love the Perry Comos and the traditional stuff you'll hear on the radio. But when I get, kind of by myself and I want to listen to something, I'll tune into, a lot of the stuff that just, like example two, like the best version of Santa Claus Coming to Town is Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Oh, wow.
Hands down does the best version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. To me, he does it live, and it's a great live version of the song. So, so I don't know, what would you say are your traditional or best versions of a song, of a Christmas song?
I can't particularly say of any particular titles. I just know people that I've liked it because I grew up with them. My father was a Nat King Cole fan, and he liked Nat King Cole, so I grew up on that. So I listened to a lot of Bing Crosby, those type of era, Dean Martin. I mean, even though some of them are pre-me, but it was because of my father liking the music.
Yeah,
that's what I listened to when I was a kid. So, like, I have XM radio, which has like a million different Christmas stations that you can get on your phone, or even a few less on your car, which is weird. You think would be just the opposite. But there's Christmas station XM, Sirius XM, called Traditions, which plays that type of music. Then there's Holly, which Holly plays more of the contemporary Mariah Carey, Carrie Underwood, Britney Spears, whatever. Those type of modern day types.
Yeah.
And then there's also a country version, and then there's a Christian version. And then if, we here in Florida, we have 88.3, Z 88.3, which basically plays Christmas music from Thanksgiving on all the way through January 1st. So that was locally. That has all. It has a variety. I think Christian FM used to do that. In Vero Beach.
Brian Setzer. I just remembered his name. Brian Setzer. The Brian Setzer Orchestra is his name. Mm-hmm. But the question is this, and I find that people are whatever. When do you start listening to Christmas music? When is it? Listen, you can listen to Christmas music anytime you want. You can listen to it all year if you want.
Yeah, there's stations that actually on Z83.3. If you go to their app, there's a Christmas station that you can listen to anytime.
Right, but when do you listen to Christmas? When do you think is there an appropriate time to listen to Christmas music?
This is my tradition, and this is me, is I will listen to instrumental Christmas music only. I don't want words be in the month of like November. Probably after Halloween. Basically, I will listen to Christmas music a little bit, but it has to be instrumental, keyboards, guitars,
right?
No vocals, no nothing.
Okay, interesting.
Then Thanksgiving, then it's open up for grab. And being a Christian, I try to avoid, especially on XM, hit the next button, the Santa Clauses are coming to town songs. I particularly, I'm not a fan of them. I don't hate them all. Some of them are okay. Frosty the Snowman, But being a Christian, I really like, hear songs that are dealing with the birth of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just the way that I am. I mean, I'm not against it. And if people listen to it, it's fine. I mean, I have no problem with it. I just myself kind of like will next it every time I hear Frosty the Snowman song. and there was it's
I mean, yeah, but you live in Florida. Do you really want to listen to Frosty the Snowman anyway? I mean, you
no.
can't build one, so why would you listen to it?
Well, it's like that
It seems
song.
like
I'm dreaming.
mockery. It just seems like mockery at that point if you're playing that in the South there.
It's the other story about I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. It's like, yeah, I can. I mean, before when I was making a lot of money working for the Trinity Broadcasting Network, and I used to just jump on an airplane, go up to my sister's house, and I'd spend like a half a month up there. And I would get the cold, and I'd get the snow, and I get to visit relatives and friends, and still enjoy a cold Christmas. But since I haven't been up there since 2005, so it's been a long time. And I'm hoping eventually, if I get property in North Carolina, maybe that's where I'll spend, because it could be. It's just like Alabama.
Yeah.
You could have a cold.
You could.
You more likely have a chance of having it cold and there than you would in Florida. Now, we've had cold Christmases in Florida. Right now, it's cold. It was like 48 degrees this morning, I think.
Yeah.
So, but next week it could be 70. So I mean, it's just. And Christmas Day could be hot, or it could be cold. I mean, I remember when I first moved down to Florida, it was cold. I mean, we were in sweaters and coats, Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing in Alabama. Wait 5 minutes, the weather will change. I mean, it could be 32 degrees like right now, and then in about an hour, it'll be 82 degrees. So, just be prepared. Be prepared with whatever it throws you.
The buildings here are crazy. I just looked up on I have a clock, a big, huge clock, and it has the temperature. It says 70 degrees.
Yeah.
But when I came in at 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning, it was like 66 degrees. And we don't turn the heat on. I mean, it's even in my house, I had the heat on for a few minutes, my mother used to call it, take the chill out of the air.
That's right.
It's the little, get that chill out of there.
That's right.
If you live in a prefabricated or mobile home, they're terrible with insulation. So it's cold. The floors are cold. It's just like, but it's just like. So let's move on to the next topic. Is a little bit personal about with your family.
Yeah.
Now that you have 2 boys and 1 girl, and the girl is married.
Yep.
So has a husband. No grandchildren yet.
Nope.
Right? No, not yet. Okay. All right. So is there a Turner family tradition of all of you guys, all the siblings?
Well, yes and yeah. I mean, I think there are traditions that we have. One of them is my son's birthday is on December 23rd. My oldest boy, Brian.
Right.
And so we gather, and whatever he wants. I mean, because he's the one that has to suffer the the dual the dual holiday syndrome of having your birthday so close to Christmas. So we try to make his day very special. So whether it's going out to lunch, I think this year he requested brunch. So I think the family is going to gather for brunch to celebrate his birthday. That way he can go out that night and celebrate, with his friends and do some things he wants to do. But yeah, so I think if we have a family tradition, it kind of revolves around, celebrating him in some way, just because, like I said, he's kind of the odd man out, and he has to compete. His birthday has to compete with, other things that are going on.
Growing up, well, you got one big present for your birthday and Christmas together. We're combining them.
Well, yeah, and we got to make we don't wrap. Like, that's a good point, because we don't wrap his presents in Christmas paper. We wrap them in birthday paper,
right? Because
we want to make that line between, like, it's your birthday, bro. It's not. You're not. We're not adding you into the Christmas pile here. You have an individual day for yourself, and that is your birthday. So we try to make that birthday as special as we can make it.
Oh, that's cool. Well, at least he wasn't born on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Yeah,
I do know people. I think Roger was. I think if I remember right, Roger was born on Christmas.
You know Roger Ball?
Yeah. He said passed away, but I think he was born on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I think, and I know some other people too. My calendar always tells me. It's funny they don't know they're not alive anymore. It says Roger will be turning 68 this year. I don't think so.
No, in heaven, where he is ageless and.
I know he's probably 30 in heaven. As we've talked about this.
That's
before.
right.
We're not going to get.
He's in good shape no matter what.
He's in good. Right. So we've talked about many traditions, and we've had a very good conversation. But let's bring it down to the tradition of why Christmas is in the first place, where it came from, and stuff like that. Let's talk about that. Why do we celebrate Christmas?
Well, as Christians, we know we celebrate Christmas because of the birth of Christ. We say, with the conversation between the angel and Mary, talking about unto you a son will be given, and he's going to be the savior of the world. And the fact that God enters into our atmosphere in a very, very real way that evening. And of course, traditionally, we celebrated at Christmas time. The reality is he was more than likely born in the spring.
Right.
And so, there's lots of debate as to, why, Christmas is happening, whether the Catholics stole, some pagan tradition, and everybody's got their feelings about that. And that's fine. To me, you can have a tree in your house, you can, give presents, you can do all those things. And I think, when we really dial into what we focus on as Christmas, and years ago there was a big flap over that people that were trying to destroy Christmas, right? There was Starbucks was trying to destroy Christmas, and there was legislation and other things. Like, it was so crazy, as if you could destroy Christmas. Like there's no way you could destroy Christmas. Everybody takes it super personally, right? Whereas like, oh, you're going to take away my Christmas. Nobody can take away your Christmas. This is a newsflash for anybody watching or listening. Nobody can take away your Christmas. However you celebrate Christmas, you can celebrate Christmas however you want. For the believer especially, though, Christmas can never be. Every day, I like to say that every day is Christmas and Easter. Every day.
Right.
We celebrate both the birth and the death of Christ and the resurrection of Christ every day, because it's a part of our identity. It's not like traditional Christianity, where they only recognize Jesus twice a year. Okay, where you're going to church because you go to church. That's somebody's tradition. They go to church traditionally, midnight mass or Christmas Eve service or Christmas Day service or whatever they do, and then they go on Easter. And I told our congregation, because I lead prayer, and I say, what a shame that people only recognize Christmas once a year. There's the traditional holiday, but the fact that for those people who are the twice a year religious people, the Christmas and Easter people, where they say, well, we got to go to church because it's Easter or it's Christmas or it's whatever. I'm like, how sad for those folks who don't get to experience Emmanuel every day. They don't get to experience God with us every day. That it's simply sadly, Christmas has become a formality. It's become a once a year we tip our hats and we say, good job, Jesus, you were born. Congrats. And then we get on with our lives. Like, oh, Christmas is over. Like, we just move on. And now we're into the new year. And now we're into something else. And then we wait those 5 months, 4 months until 4 or 5 months until Easter. And then we got to go through that rigmarole. And I'm going, well, for us that are believers, every day is Christmas. Every day is God with us. Every day is Emmanuel. Every day is, the shepherds, hearing the voice of the angels singing, that unto us a Savior is born, right? So for us, for me as a believer, every day is Christmas. Every day is a Savior is born. Every day I'm reminded of what the Lord has done, for me in my life. So that's to me, that's the Christmas story, is that every day I get to celebrate Christmas, and every day I get to celebrate Easter.
Right. Now, in the pre-show, we were talking about Christmas stories and stuff, and then you're going to share some stuff. Now, you showed me a book that you have.
I did.
That is about a Christmas story.
Yeah, so it's a book called The Mask, A Christmas Story, and it's by my friend Rick Bunshu and his son Mason. And it's a fable about a man and I'll give you a brief synopsis. I can tell you the story briefly. By the way, it's beautifully illustrated. I'll show you the inside here. Beautifully illustrated.
Okay.
Has
Yeah,
some
that looks
great
nice.
artwork in it.
Yeah.
And it's about a man who is his his inner soul, his soul life is so crippled by emotions, regret, uh, you know, anger, issues, all the things that it starts to manifest in his face and his body,
Right.
where the ugliness that is on the inside begins to come out on his face. And so he is so, you know, he doesn't leave his house, he doesn't do those, he stays away from people. He
Mm,
becomes a recluse in a lot of ways. He only goes out. He decides one Christmas Eve he goes out because he can't stand. He like breaks all the mirrors in his house because he can't stand looking at himself. And
okay.
he he finds this shop, and the shop is selling these various wares. And he's like, well, this is weird that this shop would even be open on Christmas Eve. And he's looking
Right.
at the different things, and he notices in the window is this mask that is this beautiful, crafted mask. And he goes in and he demands from the shop. He says, "I must have that mask." And shopkeeper says, "Well, it's not for sale." He says, "But he says it's no the price is no object." He says, "Sir, I can't sell it to you, but it is Christmas Eve. I'd be happy to give it to you." And he winds up giving the man the mask. And the man puts on the mask and he gains courage from having this mask. So he receives this gift of the mask, of this image.
Hmm.
And what he discovers through the process of wearing this mask is, because it gives him courage and because it gives him a sense of safety, and it gives him a sense of, being behind this perfect kind of image that he wants, it starts to change him. It starts to change his personality. And there's an encounter with a beggar child, and that winds up later on. He winds up, after a couple of years, it's a Christmas Eve again, and he winds up saving this beggar child who he had at one time, reprimanded for begging and so forth. And anyway, over the years, he starts to change. Where it says in the book, the way it says that the mass started to pinch, and it would be uncomfortable a lot of times. But he goes and he saves this beggar child from being run over by a horse of a carriage, and the mask winds up breaking. The mask comes off, it's broken, and the little beggar kid looks at him and says, "Sir, why do you wear a mask? Your face is perfectly fine." And what the moral of the story then is that this gift that was given to the man through the shopkeeper, that
Hmm.
this image of the mask changed him. And
Okay.
what it says in the verse at the end of the book here is from Romans, and he says, and the Apostle Paul says, "And just as we have borne the likeness of the earthly man, so shall we bear the likeness of the man from heaven. So put on the Lord Jesus Christ." And so the moral, if you want to say the spiritual principle of it, is this: is that when we put on Christ, it's uncomfortable. Just like this man was trying to cover up his ugliness, and the only way that this transformation happens is he had to accept this free gift
Right.
from the shopkeeper. He had to accept this image. He had to accept this mask that he puts on. And a lot of times, and I speak for me, that that we have this imposter syndrome, that we're Christians, but that behind the mask we're really terrible people. We're not very good. And I like to say that, listen, I'm a Christian. I'm just not a very good one. Most days,
Right.
I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus. In fact, the longer I live, the more I recognize how my life doesn't match
Right.
up a lot of times. And
Mm,
that pinch or that scuff from the image of Christ, that when I took on Christ, that it's conforming me. to the image of Christ. I'm recognizing more and more my need for Jesus, because I know that I can't meet the standard. I know that I cannot,
Right.
in my own self,
Right.
meet the standard. And so the story tells me that, listen, we put on this image, that Christ, came into the world and took on flesh. I imagine that was quite uncomfortable for him as well. Listen, you're talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
putting the divine into
Mhm.
a human being, which was the whole idea, that he would come down and be like us, and
Right.
that the pinch of humanity, that this divine, that God himself, God with us, was in this container, this limiting container of humanity, that he understood us. He came to do it to understand us, and he came to do it so that he could be like us and be with us and to die for us in the flesh. And the fact is that just like he had this, he was in this image, this what's called the Imago Dei, that we're in the image of Christ, that we're in that image, that even though we're made in the image of God, that every day we, when we take on the gift, when we take on the image of Christ, that we're always going to feel the pinch. We're always going to feel this imposter syndrome. We're always going to feel this because we can't meet the standard. But what in the story, what the man realizes is it started to change him. He became more compassionate. He became more caring. He became more discerning. He became more in tune with what the Lord was doing in his life, which resulted in action. Him saving the child from the near accident, him showing up at church listening to the choir sing on Christmas Eve. And so through this process, he discovers, that the ugliness he saw in his life, that inner ugliness that manifested in a physical ugliness, that when you put on the image of Christ, that you start to change. You start
Right.
to live into the image of Christ. You start to live into it, and it starts to transform you and change you. And I think that's the deal. That's part of Christmas, is Christ coming in and taking on flesh so that we could then take on Christ. That the
Right.
uncomfortability of the divine in the flesh is no different than the flesh taking on the divine and having that similar discomfort, that
Right.
we say, well, if we can't be everything, and we can't be, totally holy and totally righteous all the time, well, you're not going to be. But we bear the
Right.
image of Christ. For me, for those who take on the image of Christ, it's going to be uncomfortable. And, but eventually it starts to form us, it starts to shape us, and it starts to redeem the ugliness that is within us, to where we start to live into the hope that is Christ and what Christmas is about.
Okay. While you're talking, some of the things that I was thinking of is that's great for a certain amount of people that are listening and watching, and that's good. And I hope they hear something good out of that. But let's, in the wrap up situation here, let's talk to the people that maybe Christmas is not the happiest time of the year for them.
Yeah.
Whether they're elderly, they're by themselves, they don't have any family, they have not a lot of friends, they don't do a lot. Everybody else is happy, but they're not. Let's talk to them
Yeah.
and give them a little bit of light of the season.
Yeah, I'm
Go
not
from
a
there.
big Christmas. Let me just say this: I'm not a big Christmas guy. I'm not a big. I don't
Right.
put hundreds of dollars into decorations in my house. My wife calls me the Grinch, and I am a big Grinchy about it, because I think the formalities of Christmas is what makes me cringe a little bit, because I want it to be about Jesus. I want it to be about
Right.
low key. But as far as growing up and growing older, you know that that for me, maintaining, when you're not invited to the Christmas parties anymore, or you're not invited to, your family gatherings have dwindled, or those things, that's the hope of Christ, is that if all those things went away in that regard, then you still have Christ, you still have the meaning of
Right.
Christmas.
Right.
And for those that are listening who are struggling with this, listen, I've and I've probably mentioned it here on the show before, that I struggle with depression and anxiety. I take medication for those things. I have to deal with the stuff that I have to deal with, right? There's no perfection in it,
Right.
which makes Christmas even more important to me. The truth of Christmas, because of the issues that I deal with, right? That I have, that everything doesn't go well. It's not perfect. There are people
Right.
that are listening they're not happy in their job. They're not happy with their family. They're not happy with their situations. They're in struggle. They're in the hospital. They're in some situation that is becoming very very overwhelming. And I go back to something like Home Alone. Well, in that story, if you remember, there's the neighbor man, and the neighbor man is an old man, and Kevin McAllister is afraid of him as a neighbor. And then they eventually meet up in the church, and they have this conversation. That's part of the redeeming quality of Christmas. That what makes Home Alone a Christmas movie isn't the fact that it just takes place on Christmas, but there's a redemption arc that is a part of that. And so in that man had a situation where he hadn't seen his family. He hadn't seen his son. The words were spoken, and they hadn't seen his son in years. And the reason he went to the church was to listen to his granddaughter sing. And then Kevin McAllister challenges him and says, "You should call your son." Yeah, but what if he says no? What if he doesn't want to listen to me? What if he rejects me? Right? The fear of that. And Kevin says, "Well, you won't know until you try." And so I think for those that are listening who are dealing with the struggle, first of all, I would say that the comfort that Christ offers at Christmas is valuable. I would also say that relationships, it's a great opportunity to restore relationships. It's a great opportunity to reach out. It's a great opportunity to put yourself out there a little bit. If you're not invited to a party, throw your own party.
Right.
Invite some friends over. Go to a very public space. Go to somewhere where there's lots of people, where you can feel the energy. Don't stay in your homes. Don't sit there and just bemoan your situation. Find a way to connect with people, even if it's online. Even if there's people are get old friends on a Zoom call and have a fun your own little Christmas party online if you want. But I would say resist sitting at home and just being by yourself. I would say find a way to be social, find a way to get out there, buy yourself a nice steak dinner somewhere out in the public where you can see that and you can take in some of the holiday spirit. And who knows what would transpire. Something, once again, everybody has a redemption arc. Even like that man in Home Alone, you have a redemption arc, and somehow you find hope in taking action. So I would encourage people that are listening, find hope in taking action. Do something besides sit at home and simply bemoan your situation.
That is great advice. All right. Well, everybody, you've been watching the Millennium Beat, the Christmas special, the Christmas topic show. And I've had Pastor Paul Turner, on the computer with me. Paul, thank you very much for joining me.
Hey, my pleasure, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Everybody else, hey, have a great one. And remember, at the Millennium Beat, we like to encourage the world one story at a time.
This has been a Millennium Beat LLC production. Views and opinions of the guest are not always the views and opinions of the Millennium Beat LLC. Check us out on social media, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and TikTok at the Millennium Beat, or on Twitter at Millennium_Beat. If you would like to partner with us to reach the world, go to our website for more information. You can go to themillenniumbeat.com or tmb2000.net. Your financial support is greatly appreciated. We couldn't do all we do without your support.
The Millennium Beat just updated our website from the ground up.
Check it out at themillenniumbeat.com, or you can get there by using millenniumbeat.com or tmb2000.net, where you'll be redirected to the millenniumbeat.com's homepage. I want to thank Mass Inbound for their awesome work on our website. If you're looking for somebody to build your site, I recommend them. You can reach them at massinbound.com. That is massinbound.com. These are some of the things that you can find on our website. Homepage. You can watch our latest YouTube video or listen to our audio podcast. Also listed are some of the platforms our audio podcast is on. You'll find out when the next podcast will air and who the guest will be. On the top right, you will find 2 red buttons, Learn How to Help and Become a Guest. Under Learn How to Help, you can become a partner, sponsor, contributor, or contribute to the future Millennium Bus. You can give one-time or monthly recurring. The choice is yours. The other button is Be a Guest. Click it, go to the form, and fill it out, and we will get back to you. We would love to hear your story. Click the About Us drop-down where you'll find stats, where we are reaching people, and to find more information on our sponsors. Click on the podcast drop-down, then click on the Calendar tab where it will tell you when the shows will air and who will be on them. Or if you need to know about any meetups of the Millennium Beat staff, partners, or listeners. Also, there might be on the calendar an event at which the Millennium Beat staff will be at. Click the Guest tab for all previous guests, links to their website, social media pages, and any store they might have. Click the Forms drop-down. There you'll find a release, Be a Guest, or Become a Sponsor form.